Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Black Myth Wukong. This is a very early game area that is available over here, basically the tutorial area, if you will. I've already beaten the quote-unquote tutorial boss. Interesting, we do get Will over there from those barrels. Well, it's certainly trying to be a Souls-like. Break the barrels, get stuff. Anyway. What I want to talk about here are the mouse and keyboard controls for this game. Now, part of the reason I'm doing this video is because when you start the game the first time, it will literally tell you you should play this with a controller. And I found myself in the position where I don't much care for what the game wants you to do. I'm playing on mouse and keyboard. For the most part, in the vast majority of games, with the exception of course, driving games, flying, flight simulators, and all that, I have found mouse and keyboard to be a really good method of controlling things. And even with flying simulators, you can make it work with mouse and keyboard, but there's going to be problems with, the fine control of the plane. In something like Ace Combat or Battlefield, you may have better shooting capabilities with that. But those are not really flying simulators, right? They're arcade games more so than anything else. Regardless of that, let's talk about the mouse and keyboard controls in this game. Are they good? Do they handle well? Will you hate your life? Well, I have played things like Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, God of War, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, and yes, Dark Souls 1 in that respect on mouse and keyboard. The worst example was Dark Souls 1, but that wasn't because mouse and keyboard was unworkable, though not having PC prompts was certainly a very annoying situation. But rather the problem in that particular game was mouse sensitivity. You can, for the most part, tell pretty early on with a game. Ooh, that is an explosion. Poison explosion at that. You can tell pretty early on with a game if you're gonna be able to handle it with mouse and keyboard or not, if there's going to be any issues. There might be some weirdness in the image here, over here. I'm playing this game with pretty much maxed out settings. I might have to lower ray tracing over here. Just some weird stuff with performance. Like, for the most part, the game handles fine. Again, just like that ray tracing aspect that I mentioned. But if I set super resolution to anything higher than 75, the performance tanks. And I'm not talking here like, oh, you lose some frame or some FPS. No, I lose like half my FPS. So it's just really, really weird in that respect. Anyway, so with mouse and keyboard, what are the things that you have to worry about with mouse and keyboard controls in a game like this? What the developers basically need to do for it to be a good experience? Well, few things. Responsiveness, very important. Mouse sensitivity being part of that. Is this game responsive? Yeah, I would certainly say so. Like when I press something, when I press a key, I'm getting the response that I do want. Speaking about that, by the way, some people say, well, the controller is obviously superior because movement on controller is better. But here's the thing. We don't move with just the keyboard. We move with the mouse, right? Like, for instance, over here, I'm just pressing down the W key. And, like, wherever I look is where I'm going to hit. That's how it works. Though, it does seem to me like in this game, there's certainly a lot of situations where you do want to lock on enemies, so that kind of advantage the mouse and keyboard does have, which is camera control specifically, and flexibility of movement, flexibility of attacks with mouse and keyboard is lost over there, obviously, when you lock on. But you do still have better camera control with respect to mouse and keyboard. So sensitivity of controls, very important on mouse and keyboard. Second thing, is the UI set up to work well with mouse and keyboard? Well, from what I'm seeing over here, yeah, perfectly fine. Like, the inventory system, very easily accessible over here with mouse and keyboard, no real problems. You also have the UI set up to really properly utilize mouse and keyboard, so you see your abilities over there, your stances, like all the information you need, for the most part, is just available with mouse and keyboard. All good. So that's working just fine. Are the keys customizable? Or did the developers force you to use a certain layout that just doesn't make sense? because that can be annoying when you don't have proper key customization, and the keys that the developers have chosen don't necessarily make a lick of sense. I've seen that happen with The Witcher. Like, seriously, The Witcher is Witcher 3 specifically, not Witcher 2, weirdly enough. But Witcher 3 has some really, really weird controls over there set up for it. But here, it's fine, and you do have options over there. And the final annoyance that can happen on mouse and keyboard is when the default controls are, even if you do have the ability of customizing things, when the default controls are just set up in a weird way, because that just means that's a minor issue compared to everything I've mentioned so far, but it is still an issue. It is still something you're going to deal with. So that is the only problem that I see. Like, some of the default controls are not necessarily great. Most of them are fine. They'll get the job done. They just work fine. But there are certainly a couple of things. So if we look at the settings with keyboard and mouse, we can see the default controls. What are the problems here? Well, first off, the jump key is set to control. That is a really, really awkward key to use, especially because you're going to be jumping a lot. It's not like, oh, you're just going to jump occasionally. No, there are attacks with jumping. Like, jumping is useful in this game, in combat. Like, you know, you're doing a jump attack like that can be really, really useful. By the way, the jump attack here works significantly better than any of the Souls game. Just going to mention that with respect to it. So it works, but it's just set to a really awkward key to control. Because what are you going to use? What finger are you going to use to press that control? Are you going to move your little finger? Well, the problem with that is you're going to sprint a lot in this game, right? So when you're sprinting a lot, which is set to shift by default, and then I'm having to move this finger, it's creating an awkward situation. You can't, and using the thumb is even worse in that respect. So that is the first thing you want to change. Beyond that, anything else that's awkward, the V key, right? So you get the V key, which is set to staff spin. So what does staff spin does? Well, when you press it down, your character goes into this particular motion. So let me just demonstrate that with these enemies, what exactly it does. Okay, just gonna take a bit of damage. By the way, gotta mention is switching between targets when you're locked on is fairly smooth, works fairly well, not really a big problem in that respect. So not an issue with respect to that. Perfectly fine. Okay, so that's good. That works. That's not a problem. All good. But just really awkward to press the V key because you can only really use your thumb, and Z, X, and C, at least for me personally, it might depend on the size of your hands, size of your fingers, all that. But for me personally, Z, X, and C are fine to press. V is a bit awkward. I've used V in games like I played a lot the World of Warcraft. I had like 30 different keybinds. Mind you, modifiers aren't as great as just having to press one button to get an action, but if it's just something you're using every 20-30 seconds, that's fine, or 4 minutes, no problem. Though I actually had my cooldowns on things like Q and E. Anyway, so Q and E are already used. E is interaction. Gourd is your healing item that's set to war. You might want to swap those around, because E can be a bit easier to reach than R, just swapping those around. So we're seeing the issue. Like, the big issue is the jump key. Then you have the staff spin, which is an issue. Photo mode is set to P, but that's whatever, right? Set far away. You can put it closer if you want to, if you're going to take a lot of photos, but it's not really a problem. So what I'm going to do here, and this is how you may want to set up, or in whatever way suits you, I'm going to just switch these two keys around. So I'm going to put jump on Alt and walk on control, because I imagine I'm not going to be doing a lot of walking. And here's the thing, if I'm walking, I'm not necessarily going to want to sprint, at the same time, or hold down the sprint key. It's just interrupting my actions. If I'm having to Okay, just a bit of that damage. Okay, and okay, so that's the jump key. What about that lovely staff spin? Well, for the staff spin, there are various options available. Some of which may not necessarily be the most popular for a lot of people, but there are keys that a lot of games just refuse to flat out freaking use. Which ones? Well, there is, of course, caps lock. Yes, caps lock is a keybind. You should use it. Personally, I had my push to talk on caps lock, you know, for Discord and all that. That's what I use there. I still do, actually, when I do go on Discord to chat with people. But in this game, you can't use caps lock. Okay, there's the second best option, which is tab. Yes, tab, caps locks are keys. Maybe not keys that people want to use. There's a third option, which is the tilde key. That's the most uncomfortable one, I gotta mention, because with your little finger, it's uncomfortable. With other fingers, it can be a bit of a reach. So it depends on how often you're going to use it. So I'm just going to set it to tab, and if I have to use it, depends, right? I might swap it around. It will depend on, you know, what playstyle do I go for? How often do I, you know, care about using this, for instance? It does seem very situational from my perspective. I could, of course, also put the dodge key to alt as opposed to, in fact, I'm gonna do just that. I'm going to put the dodge key on alt and the jump key on space. Just seems to make sense, right? Like jumping should be space. And that will get the job done. No problem, right? And, you know, if I, like, pressing alt, I did this in God of War, by the way. But pressing alt is not really a big problem. I don't think I'm quite... Okay. Yeah, he seems like a big guy. And maybe a bit too much for me right now. Like, I don't think you need to kill this one, so I'm probably just gonna die. Yeah, it seems like an optional boss. Okay. Yeah, just that. Like, he's doing a lot more damage than I can really take, and also he's got a good amount of HP, so don't think he's meant for you to defeat at this point. Maybe a bit more levels in that respect. But for the most part, mouse and keyboard do work. Just gotta rebind a couple of things, it's fine. Performance is a bit weird though, really. As for how I feel about how the game looks and all that, yeah, it looks freaking amazing. Bit of an oddity with HDR, like you would expect NVIDIA, a game supported by NVIDIA, to, with DLSS and all the bells and whistles, to have, to actually have better NVIDIA app support. So for instance, NVIDIA has in their application, they've got the ability of enabling HDR in every game. I'm doing so, it does seem to have an effect, but you know what the problem is? Recording it. Actually freaking recording it is a bit of an issue right now. Maybe just the application needs an update, I don't know. Hard to say at this point. Get wrecked. So the Monkey King is gonna wreck the wolves. Yeah, I actually played for about an hour with the key set, with the dodge key set to space, so I got used to that, which is obviously costing me a bit over here. But hey, reward. Not bad. Okay, and yeah, you can switch stuff very easily with the mouse over there. No problem. I mean, you're supposed to kind of skip this section and, you know, get to the top. Whoa! That was not meant to happen. It's weird that you have a charge. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, just gotta change my attitude. Like, maybe I should have just kept the dodge on space. We'll see. You can't block, so you're stuck having to dodge, which was never really my strongest suit. Then again, I played the entirety of Elden Ring without a shield, so what the hell am I talking about? Anyway, Costin signing out. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and let me know if you're interested in me covering Black Myth Wukong. I guess we are getting the Monkey King this year.